Hey folks, it's your friend SpiderFish. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight, we're diving into tales from r/relationships. Those wonderfully messy, sometimes hilarious, sometimes heartwarming stories of people trying to figure out love, dating, and everything in between. These aren't just about drama. They're about the way people connect, miscommunicate, and stumble through emotions, which, let's be honest, is something we've all done. So grab a snack, relax, and let's start with our first story. Story 1. My girlfriend thinks I'm secretly a spy. I never thought my relationship would start to feel like a bad Netflix drama, but here we are. I've been dating Emily for about a year. She's brilliant, funny, and has this infectious laugh that makes even the worst days better. But Emily also has a wild imagination, and lately, her imagination has decided that I'm secretly a spy. It started innocently. I work in IT, which means sometimes I'm glued to my laptop fixing bugs late at night. Emily would joke, "Are you hacking the Pentagon?" And I'd laugh it off. Cute, right? Just playful teasing. But then, little things piled up. Like the time I didn't answer her text for an hour because I was in a meeting. When I finally replied, she asked, "So, were you in an underground bunker?" Or when she found my old college notebook filled with cryptography notes from a math elective. She stared at it like it was the Rosetta Stone. "This looks like code," she whispered. I tried to explain it was literally homework. She nodded slowly, but the doubt in her eyes was real. The tipping point came last month. I told Emily I was going on a weekend work trip. In reality, it was exactly that. A boring conference in Chicago about cloud servers. Lots of free pens, bad coffee, and keynote speeches that felt like lullabies. But Emily? She convinced herself I was being deployed on some covert operation. When I got back, she was waiting at my apartment with a suspicious look. "You're tanner than when you left," she said. I blinked. "Emily, I was in Chicago. In November. It snowed." But she crossed her arms, unconvinced. Later, I found out she'd Googled flights out of O'Hare to known spy hotspots. Her top suspect? Prague. It all came to a head last week. We were having dinner, just spaghetti and wine, when Emily suddenly put down her fork and said, "Look, I know the truth. You're a spy. You can tell me." I nearly choked on a meatball. "Emily, I literally fix printers for a living." She leaned forward, deadly serious. "That's what makes it the perfect cover." I tried to laugh it off, but she wasn't joking. She started listing evidence. My mysterious late-night work, my cryptic notebooks, my disappearing acts, when I go for runs without my phone. By the time she was done, I half expected her to slide me a dossier labeled Agent Boyfriend. Here's the kicker. Emily says she likes the idea. She told me, "If you're a spy, that means you're dangerous," but in a hot way. Now, every time I do something mundane, she winks. If I take out the trash, she whispers, "Mission accomplished." If I go grocery shopping, she says, "Safe travels on your assignment." At first it was funny, but now I'm wondering, does my girlfriend actually believe I'm an undercover agent? Or is this just a really committed bit? I asked her straight up, "Do you really think I'm a spy?" She smiled mysteriously and said, "I'll never tell." This story cracks me up because it's so harmless but so telling about relationships. Sometimes, when you love someone, you build these little myths around them. Inside jokes, playful exaggerations, silly narratives. And sometimes those myths take on a life of their own. Emily's suspicion isn't about espionage. It's about excitement. Maybe she finds daily life a little mundane, and imagining her boyfriend as James Bond with a printer-fixing cover story makes things more fun. Honestly, I think that's kind of sweet. As long as it doesn't spiral into actual paranoia, let her have her fantasy. And who knows, maybe lean into it. Buy a cheap pair of aviator sunglasses, order your coffee, shaken, not stirred, and let her giggle about it. Because at the end of the day, relationships are built on two things: trust and playfulness. And this one seems to have both, even if it's wrapped in a trench coat and dark sunglasses. Story 2. My boyfriend's family thinks I'm his life coach, not his girlfriend. When I first started dating Mark, I knew he was a little quirky. He's the kind of guy who color codes his socks, eats the exact same breakfast every day. 2 scrambled eggs, 1 piece of toast, and an alarming amount of hot sauce. And has a binder labelled Future Goals that looks like it came straight out of a corporate workshop. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have guessed, was that his family would somehow get it into their heads that I wasn't his girlfriend at all. Number, they think I'm his life coach. It started the first time I met his parents. I showed up at their house in a nice dress, brought a bottle of wine, the whole first impression kit. I was nervous, but excited. Mark had been hyping up his mum's cooking and his dad's sense of humour for weeks. We're sitting down to dinner, and out of nowhere his mum says, "So, how long have you been coaching Mark?" I laughed awkwardly, assuming she meant like tutoring, helping with work. Maybe she misunderstood my job title. I do HR training for a living, so I thought she was just confused. But then his dad chimed in. "Yeah, we can already see the progress." He's so much more confident these days. Whatever program you're running, it's working. Meanwhile, Mark just sat there, happily eating mashed potatoes like this was the most normal thing in the world. I froze, mid-bite. Coaching?" I asked. His mom nodded earnestly. "Yes, the personal development thing. We've been telling our friends that Mark finally found a coach who really gets him." I glanced at Mark. He shrugged and mumbled something about, "Yeah, it's complicated." Complicated? "Buddy, you just downgraded me from girlfriend to Tony Robbins." I figured it was a weird mix-up and that Mark would clear it up after dinner. Spoiler, he did not. The next morning, his sister pulled me aside and whispered, "Honestly, thank you. He's needed guidance for so long. He won't listen to us, but he listens to you." I stammered, "I guess?" She smiled. "Exactly. That's the sign of a great coach." Now, I was trapped. I didn't want to embarrass Mark in front of his family by shouting, "I'm not his coach, I'm his girlfriend." But I also didn't want to keep the charade alive. And yet, the charade did continue. The next few months, every time I went to a family event, someone would corner me with questions that sounded like they belonged at a self-help retreat. Should he cut back on gluten? What kind of morning affirmations do you recommend? Do you think he's ready for a promotion? Or should he build more confidence first? At one point, his aunt asked me to take her on as a client. I'm not kidding. She handed me a notebook and said, "Could you give me some exercises like you give Mark? Maybe start with goal setting." I sat there, pen hovering, wondering if writing Step 1, stop mistaking girlfriends for life coaches, would be too harsh. Finally, I confronted Mark. "Why does your entire family think I'm your life coach?" I demanded. He blinked at me, genuinely confused. "Isn't that kind of funny?" "No," I said. "Do you realize how weird this is? They don't think we're dating. They think I'm motivating you like a TED Talk with benefits." Mark scratched his head. "Well, when I told them about you, I said you were helping me with time management and confidence. I guess they assumed you were, professional about it." "Mark," I groaned, "you made me sound like a productivity app." Things reached peak absurdity at his cousin's wedding. The DJ had just switched from sappy ballads to dance music, and Mark's mom suddenly pulled me onto the dance floor. Not to dance, to talk. She leaned in, shouting over the music, "We want to thank you for everything you've done for Mark. He's so much more responsible since you started coaching him." I tried to shout back, "I'm his girlfriend!" But the DJ cranked the bass, and my words got swallowed by Pitbull. Later that night, his uncle raised a toast. "Here's to Mark's coach, who turned him into the man he is today." Everyone clapped, glasses clinked. And Mark? He just smiled sheepishly, like, "Yeah, isn't she great?" The final straw came at Thanksgiving. Mark's dad stood up mid-meal and announced, "We're starting a gratitude circle. Let's all go around and say what we're thankful for." When it was his mom's turn, She looked at me with misty eyes and said, "I'm thankful Mark found such a dedicated coach. She's changed his life." Everyone nodded in agreement. And then his grandma, asked, "Do you offer senior discounts?" That was it. I slammed my fork down and said, "I'm not his coach. I'm his girlfriend. His girlfriend." The table went dead silent. Turkey hovered midair on forks. Cranberry sauce dripped in slow motion. Finally, his sister whispered, "Oh." Mark mumbled, "Oops." After that, everything unraveled. His parents were shocked, insisting they had no idea. His aunt looked genuinely betrayed, like I'd conned her out of a free seminar. Mark apologized later, but his apology was weak at best. "I didn't think it mattered what label they used," he said. "Didn't matter? Buddy, there's a Grand Canyon of difference between this is my girlfriend and this is my coach. Now, the family treats me like I pulled some grand reveal on a reality show. Half of them are embarrassed. The other half still email me asking for tips. And Mark, he's just baffled why I'm so upset. Okay, this one is so good because it hits that sweet spot of absurd but believable. Mark clearly just failed communication 101. He thought describing his girlfriend as helpful made her sound impressive, but he basically branded her as a walking self-help book. Then he let the misunderstanding snowball until his whole family believed she was part Dr. Phil, part Jillian Michaels. What gets me is how long it went on. At some point, you have to look at your parents and say, "Guys, this is my girlfriend." Instead, Mark leaned back and let his family clap for her like she'd written The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Boyfriends. Honestly, I think the girlfriend deserves to keep the title. Next time the aunt asks for tips, send her an invoice. Coaching session, $75 per hour. If Mark won't correct them, at least she should get paid for all the free advice. But deeper than that, this story is about labels. Sometimes people downplay relationships, intentionally or not, and it stings. Being called a coach instead of a partner says, "You fix me," instead of, "You love me." And those aren't the same thing. So, yeah, this one's hilarious, but it's also a reminder that if you care about someone, introduce them properly. They're not your coach, they're your partner. Story 3. My brother's fiancée tried to flirt with me, and now I don't know what to do. Families are complicated. Relationships are complicated. Put them together and, well, you get this mess. I'm 26, and I have an older brother, Tom, who's 29. Tom and I have always been close. Not tell each other every secret close, but we hang out, we share memes, we cover for each other with our parents when one of us screws up. Normal sibling stuff. So when Tom got engaged to his fiancée Claire, I was genuinely happy for him. Claire is gorgeous, charming, the kind of person who can light up a room just by walking into it. She and Tom seemed like a good match. She laughed at his corny dad jokes, he doted on her, they looked comfortable together. But then, Claire got a little too comfortable with me. It started with small things. We were at a family barbecue, and Claire sat next to me. Totally normal. But then she started asking questions that felt off. "So, do you have a girlfriend? Or are you just keeping your options open?" she asked, twirling her hair. I laughed nervously and said I was single. She leaned closer and whispered, "Well, don't settle. You can definitely do better than most people." I brushed it off. Maybe she was just being friendly. But later, when Tom was flipping burgers and not paying attention, she touched my arm and said, "You've got the same eyes as your brother, but I think yours are nicer." That one made me choke on my soda. Over the next few weeks, little moments kept happening. One night, Tom invited me over for dinner. Claire poured me a glass of wine and said, "You clean up better than your brother. You should dress like this more often." Another time, she DM'd me late at night. Nothing overt, just "Hey, what are you up to?" But when I replied, "Just watching Netflix," she sent a winky face. The final straw came at Tom's birthday party. Everyone was hanging out in the backyard, music playing, people laughing. Tom went inside to grab more drinks, and Claire sat down next to me on the patio swing. She leaned in, way too close, and whispered, "If things were different, I think you and I would be trouble." Then she laughed, stood up, and walked away before I could even respond. My stomach dropped. Here's the problem. I don't want to blow up my brother's life. I don't want to be the person who throws a grenade into his engagement. But how do you ignore something like that? If I tell him, he might not believe me. Worse, he might think I was the one crossing lines. If I don't tell him, and things get worse, it'll look like I was hiding something. Meanwhile, Claire keeps acting like nothing happened. Around Tom, she's affectionate, bubbly, perfect fiancé mode. Around me, she keeps sneaking glances, little smirks, these subtle signals that make my skin crawl. I feel like I'm stuck in a bad soap opera. To make things even more complicated, my parents love Claire. They've already started calling her our future daughter-in-law. My mom is planning bridal showers like she's auditioning for a reality show. My dad jokes that Tom outkicked his coverage by landing someone like her. So if I say anything, I'm not just risking Tom's relationship, I'm detonating a family landmine. And Tom? He's head over heels. He brags about Claire constantly. He told me the other day, "She's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, about that. Last week, Tom and Claire hosted a game night. Everything was fine. Snacks, board games, laughs. At one point, Claire suggested we play charades. When it was her turn, she acted out flirting. But instead of directing it at Tom, she walked straight over to me, batted her eyelashes, and pretended to faint into my arms. Everyone laughed. Tom laughed. But I sat there frozen, thinking, she's not even hiding it anymore. Afterward, when everyone left, Claire cornered me in the kitchen. She smirked and whispered, "Relax. It's just fun. Unless you want it to be more." I swear my soul left my body. So here's where I'm at. Option 1. Tell Tom everything. Risk him not believing me, risk him thinking I'm jealous or trying to sabotage his engagement. Option 2. Say nothing and hope Claire's behaviour stops. Risk her eventually pushing it further or Tom finding out later and blaming me for staying quiet. Option 3. Confront Claire directly. Tell her to back off. Risk her twisting it into making me look like the aggressor. None of these sound great. But I do know one thing. This isn't sustainable. And every time I see Tom smiling at her like she's his whole world, I feel this heavy knot in my chest. This one's scandalous with a capital S, because it's not just about flirting. It's about betrayal. Claire isn't just crossing a line. She's doing it with full awareness of how much damage it could cause. And she's hiding behind jokes and plausible deniability, which makes it even harder to call out. Here's the thing about messy family dynamics. Silence almost always makes it worse. If the storyteller here stays quiet, Claire has all the power. She can escalate, she can spin the narrative, she can pretend innocence while leaving the brother completely in the dark. But honesty, as scary as it is, might be the only way out. Even if Tom doesn't believe it at first, at least the truth is on the record. And if other little jokes from Claire start adding up, Tom might realize he should have listened. It's also a reminder that family approved doesn't always mean good for the family. Sometimes people look perfect on the outside while hiding the messiest behavior behind closed doors. And honestly, if this were me, I'd be drafting a group chat message that says, "PSA, I'm not a life coach and I'm definitely not into my brother's fiancé. Somebody help me." Story 4. My fiancé has a secret relationship steering committee, and my sister's on it. I always thought I was pretty good at reading people. I noticed the little tells, the way someone's voice rises when they dodge a question, the micro smile when they're pleased with themselves, the forehead touch when they're stressed. Nothing spooky, just a lifetime of being the friend who sits at the edge of the party and watches the room like it's a nature documentary. So when my fiancée, Lena, started doing this new thing, pausing mid-conversation, eyes flicking left like she was checking subtitles only she could see. I clocked it immediately. It wasn't a lie tell, it was a consultation tell. Like someone in mission control whispering in her ear. At first it seemed cute. We were planning our wedding, and weddings turn even the calmest humans into project managers. If she wanted to sanity check centerpiece options with her group chat before committing to eucalyptus or dusty rose, who was I to judge? I assumed it was her best friend Maya, maybe her cousin Jules, the usual suspects who own Pinterest boards the way kings used to own land. But then decisions started coming out smooth, suspiciously smooth, like too smooth for real life. I'd say, "What do you think about a brunch wedding?" And she'd blink, swipe left with her eyes, and come back with a fully formed brief. Brunch is strong Q2 energy, but consider the guest mix. Older folks appreciate a daytime end time, but bands prefer evening slots. We could do a golden hour ceremony with espresso martinis as a compromise. I'm not kidding. She said Q2 energy. About eggs. It was like debating a panel that had already convened and voted while I was still sharpening my pencils. I told myself this was just Lena being Lena, organized, opinionated, the kind of person who color codes her spices. But then the consultations started invading our non-wedding life. The couch we should buy, whether we should get a second cat, what time we should eat dinner before seeing her parents. I'd watch her glance left, pause, and then deliver a verdict like a judge coming back from chambers. One night, it slipped. We were sitting on the floor with delivery tie because the table was buried under sample swatches like a Sherpa under fabric. I asked if she wanted to keep doing Sunday dinners with her family after we got married or rotate. She did the little eye flick. And then, absent-mindedly, she said, "Hold on, steering committee's typing." I said, "I'm sorry, the who?" She froze. Her phone buzzed. My spidey sense, not the superhero, just the anxious cousin, started ringing like a fire alarm. "Oh," she said, and smiled the way you smile at a cop when you realize your registration expired 3 months ago. It's a little joke. What's the joke? That my friends unofficially help me steer things. Like a committee. She laughed too hard. Exactly. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm also not ashamed. When she went to brush her teeth, she left her laptop flopped open. The screen was a waterfall of little circles and color-coded names. It was Discord. The server was called The Helm. I didn't click. I didn't have to. The side panel showed channels like hashtag wardrobe upgrade, hashtag in-laws strategy, hashtag budget bones, and, I wish I were making this up, hashtag fiancé UX. There were 6 little profile pictures in the online list. One was Maya, one was Jules, another was my sister, another was Lena's ex. If my stomach made a sound, it would have been the Minecraft cave noise. I closed the laptop like it bit me and sat on my hands until she came back into the room smelling like mint and denial. "Hey," I said calmly, like a hostage negotiator. "Who's on the steering committee?" She stared at me for 3 full seconds, the exact amount of time it takes a person to decide whether to tell a small truth or a big lie. "Friends," she said. "Family." Then, with a desperate flourish, "Trusted stakeholders." "Stakeholders," I repeated, in the same tone you use when a child says they're married to their teddy bear. "Don't be weird," she said. "It's just crowdsourcing." "Of me," I said. "You're crowdsourcing me." She breathed out like I was missing the point. "No. Decisions, patterns. You know how you always say you can get in your head? I get in my head too. This helps." "Who is on it?" I said, quietly this time, like I was ordering a very particular sandwich. She sat down cross-legged. "Okay, Maya and Jules, you know that." "I do." "And your sister. She's a good translator for your family culture." I blinked. "My sister," I said, "who cannot keep a plant alive, is helping you manage me like a fiddle leaf fig." "She's very insightful about you," Lena said, sincerely. which would have been sweet if my eyes weren't full of bees. "And your ex?" I asked, throat sandpaper. She flinched. "Only at the beginning." "At the beginning of what?" "Of us," she said, "because he knew what worked and what didn't." I set my pad thai down very carefully, as if sudden movements might set off the obviously present explosives. "Okay," I said, "walk me through the committee. Like I'm applying to be adopted by it." Lena rubbed her temples. "It's not like that." "It started small. I asked Maya if I was being weird about the shoes for your cousin's wedding. Then Jules wanted to help because you kept saying whatever you want, which, respectfully, is a cop-out. Then your sister got looped because I don't always get your mom's subtext." She made her voice go mom soft. "It's fine, honey. Whatever's easiest for you means I hate this plan." "Fair. And your ex?" I asked again. She swallowed. "He reached out when we announced our engagement. He said he was happy for me. He apologized for being a jerk. And he offered insight," she said, pronouncing it like it might turn to dust if she didn't say it fast. "What insight?" She took a breath. "He said I can get controlling when I'm scared." The bees paused. Somewhere, a violin tuned itself. "And you thought, wow, I should definitely invite this man into a secret Slack to comment on my relationship." "It's Discord," she muttered reflexively, then winced. "Right," I said. "I'm sorry for mislabeling the platform where my life is a Jira ticket." "You're making it sound sinister," she said. "It's not. It's like a brain trust. If I'm spiraling, they say, 'Hey, breathe.' If I'm about to steamroll you because I've pre-planned the next 6 months, they say, 'Maybe ask first.' It makes me better." I stared at the swatches on the table. Linen, ivory, bone, eggshell, the 4 horsemen of wedding admin. I thought about Lena organizing the pantry with military precision, color-coding the Tupperware like a UN summit, loving me with that same intensity. And maybe sometimes turning me into a project because projects can't surprise you. "I don't want you to be perfect," I said. "I want you to be with me. Not with a quorum." "I am with you," she said, and her voice cracked. "I just want to do it right." "Then ask me," I said. "Not a panel that includes my sister and a man who once ghosted you for a yoga retreat." She put her hands over her face. "That was one time," she said into her palms. "And it was a meditation intensive, not yoga." Then, from behind her fingers, "I'm kidding." I know how it sounds. We sat there with the buzzing laptop between us, like a third party we hadn't invited, but who brought the best dip. "Can I see it?" I asked finally. She nodded, small, like a kid. I opened the laptop. The server's sidebar looked like a blueprint for a mall. Hashtag date night cadence, hash household ops, conflict escalation, and the most populous channel of all, because of course it was, hashtag big feelings. I clicked hashtag fiancé UX, pinned posts, a Google Doc titled User Guide, Alex, version 3.7, my name, my version number. I made a noise only dogs could hear. Lena squeezed her eyes shut. "It's not bad," she said. "It's like how to love you notes." I scrolled. It was shockingly tender and not wrong. A bullet list that alternated between give him 20 minutes to process before asking for a decision and he melts for cold mango. Notes about how I stop mid-sentence when I'm trying to phrase something gently. How I talk with my hands when I'm overstimulated. A reminder to let me be useful. He likes to carry the heavy stuff. It's his love language. And a sticky about how I need explicit praise sometimes because I grew up in a house where quiet competence was the default and celebration made my dad weird. It was intimate. It was loving. It was also not private. Little comments threaded under each bullet from the committee. Maya's insights were warm. Jules's were practical. And there, with a minimalist avatar, my sister had added, "He'll pretend he's fine if he thinks it helps you." Check twice. Then, in a different tone altogether, the ex had written under a note about conflict debriefs. She won't do this unless prompted. Build the habit. I closed the laptop. I'm angry, I said, and hungry, and disturbingly seen. Lena laughed in relief and then choked on it because she knew that wasn't a fix. I get why you're mad, she said. I didn't mean to make you a product. I'm not mad that you ask for help, I said. I'm mad that the help is organized like a shadow cabinet that meets without me. She bit her lip. I can archive it. Archive is not delete, I said, because I also work in tech. She winced. Delete then. I stared at her. What if, I said slowly, we replace it? With what? She asked, suspicious as a cat. With us, I said. With a weekly, stand-up. She squinted. Like Scrum. I groaned. No, like Sunday coffee, where we talk about the week, our budget, what we're scared about, what we're excited about, what we need from each other. You can bring your binder. I'll bring mango. Her eyes went glossy. I love mango. I know, I said. It's in my user guide. We sat there for a minute, letting the idea breathe. Then I said, also, my sister is benched. She nodded instantly. Benched. And the ex? I said. She looked at the ceiling. Permanently retired, she said to the light fixture. And if you need advice, I said, softer now, ask your friends. I'm not trying to be your only mirror, but no more committee about me without me. Okay, she said, and her shoulders dropped an inch like someone had finally taken a backpack off. I'll call my sister, I added, politely, with the exact amount of shame required. She was helpful, Lena said, and then braced for impact. I know, I said. That's why I'm only mostly mad. We spent the rest of the night doing something that felt halfway between a breakup and a cleanse. She screen shared her server, and I watched her archive channels, then, with a little ceremony, delete #fianceUX. She typed, "Thank you for loving me. I need to learn to steer with the person I chose." This server served its purpose. Logging off. Then she hit enter, closed the lid, and slid the laptop across the table to me like evidence relinquished. I didn't look at it. I reached for her hand. The first Sunday coffee was awkward. We sat across from each other like interns leading a meeting for the first time. I asked how she was feeling, and she said, fine, which is code for not fine. I asked again. She said she was scared. Scared of messing up, scared of being too much, scared of loving me in the way she knows how, with lists and systems and backup plans, and having me feel managed instead of adored. I told her I was scared too. Scared of becoming a task, scared of failing her binder, scared of saying what I need, because some old version of me learned to be low maintenance, and I haven't shaken him yet. We wrote 3 things on a post-it we stuck to the fridge. Ask before assuming. Praise before fixing. Sit on the same side. It sounds corny. It is corny. But it helped. The story of us stopped being a series of memos from the helm and started being a recurring appointment where we put our actual unspun selves on the table with the coffee rings. 2 weeks later, my sister texted, "Am I fired from the board?" I told her there is no board, and also how dare she. She sent 100 crying, laughing emojis, and then, in the next bubble, "For real, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. I forgot I was also interfering." I told her I love her. She said she loves me. Then she asked if we were still doing a registry because she found a cutting board shaped like our state, and she will die if she can't buy it. People contain multitudes. The ex emailed Lena a lukewarm, "Take care." She didn't respond. She told me she felt a little grief. Not for him, but for the part of her that outsourced her comfort to people who couldn't give it back. We sat with that for a while. Here's the thing I learned. A lot of us are running committees in our heads. Parents, exes, friends, the people we're trying to impress, the people we swore we'd never turn into. You gather them around your inner conference table and ask them to vote on your choices. You call it objectivity. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just fear wearing a headset. I don't think Lena's committee made her a villain. It made her human. It was clumsy, and it leaked, and it hurt me. And also, it came from love. She wanted to be good at this. She wanted to be good for me. She forgot briefly that being good with me was the only metric that mattered. We still mess up. She still glances left sometimes, and I still flinch. Then she looks back at me, and I raise my hand like a kid in class and say, "Hi, quorum of one here." She laughs, and we pick up the thread. The other day, in our Sunday stand-up that is not Scrum, she said, "I like us better like this. It's slower, it's scarier, but it's us." I said, "Version 4.0. She said, "Stop it." I said, "Fine." "Mango?" She said, "Always." Okay. Scandalous, yes, but also quietly sweet in that we're all just figuring this out way. I love this one because it lives where a lot of modern relationships actually live. Between autonomy and advice, between community and privacy, between wanting to do it right and accidentally turning your partner into a project. The secret server is wild, especially with the ex and the sister. But the motivations underneath aren't alien. They're fear and love dressed up as efficiency. There are a few takeaways here that feel worth pocketing. Advice isn't evil. Uninvited advice, organized like an HR offsite, might be. If your partner needs a brain trust, that's human. Looping your partner into that trust, that's respect. Nothing about me without me is a decent boundary. Whether it's budgets, family strategy, or a user guide with your name on it, people deserve to be present for conversations that define them. Replacing secrecy with ritual works. A weekly check-in sounds robotic until you fill it with real feelings and mango. Then it's just scaffolding for intimacy. And hey, if you do secretly maintain a #BigFeelings channel, that's fine. Just make sure the person your big feelings are about is invited to the room. Story 5. My girlfriend has a second boyfriend, but she calls him her emotional support partner. I thought I'd heard every label modern dating could throw at me. Situationship, breadcrumbing, orbiting. But nothing prepared me for the day my girlfriend told me she had an emotional support partner. And that emotional support partner was another boyfriend. I've been dating Julia for about 1.5 years. She's artsy, free-spirited, the kind of person who owns more paint-stained overalls than actual pants. She's passionate, funny, sometimes infuriating, but always magnetic. From the beginning, she made it clear she valued openness in relationships. She didn't call herself poly exactly, but she used words like fluid and non-traditional. I nodded along, thinking it was just her way of saying she wasn't the jealous type. Turns out, it meant a little more than that. Last month, we were eating ramen, slurping noodles in comfortable silence, when Julia casually said, "Oh, by the way, you might meet Evan soon. He's my emotional support partner." I nearly inhaled a whole jalapeno slice. "I'm sorry, you're what?" "My emotional support partner," she repeated, like it was a normal phrase everyone uses. "He's not a boyfriend, but, he's important." I set my chopsticks down very carefully, like I was defusing a bomb made of seaweed. "Important how?" She shrugged, slurping another noodle. "He's just there for me emotionally. We cuddle, we talk. He validates me." I blinked. "So, a boyfriend?" "No," she said firmly. "You're my boyfriend. Evan's just my ESP emotional support partner, like she just invented a new job title for HR. A week later, I met Evan. Julia invited him to game night at her apartment. When he walked in, I thought he was her cousin. Tall, soft-spoken, with the kind of earnest face that belongs in a public library poster about reading. He shook my hand politely and said, "I've heard so much about you." I wanted to say, Funny, I've heard about you for exactly 8 days. But instead, I just smiled like I wasn't internally screaming. Throughout the night, Evan and Julia acted well, like a couple. They shared inside jokes, laughed at each other's quirks, and once, when Julia got chilly, Evan casually draped a blanket over her shoulders. Julia caught my raised eyebrow and quickly added, "Don't worry, babe. This is just ESP behavior. ESP behavior. Like he was a service dog, not a man with cheekbones and a good sense of humor. I tried to play it cool. If Julia needed emotional support, fine. But the lines between partner and boyfriend were blurry at best. One night, Julia called me after a bad day. I rushed over with ice cream, ready to listen. But when I got there, Evan was already on the couch, rubbing her back. Julia looked up and said, "Oh good, my 2 rocks are here." My 2 rocks. I sat on the other end of the couch like a third-wheel geologist. Another time, Julia invited me to brunch. When I arrived, Evan was already there, sipping a mimosa. Julia waved me over cheerfully. "I figured you two should bond. You're both so important to me. Important to her." Sure. But what about me? I felt like a cast member in a play where no one had given me the script. The final straw came at Julia's birthday party. She made a big speech thanking everyone for coming. Then she raised her glass and said, "And I especially want to thank Evan, my emotional support partner, for always being there for me." Everyone clapped. I just sat there, holding my drink, wondering if I'd accidentally joined a pyramid scheme where the downline was boyfriends. Later that night, I confronted her. "Julia," I said, "you can't just invent a title and pretend it changes the reality. Evan is your second boyfriend." She frowned. "That's not fair. You're the one I kiss goodnight. He's the one I cry to." "That's worse," I exclaimed. "You outsourced half the relationship." She crossed her arms. "You don't understand. Evan fulfills a different role. He's like my comfort person." I sighed. "And what am I?" She thought about it for a moment and said, "You're my main quest." I nearly threw myself out the window. Now I'm stuck. Do I stay with a girlfriend who insists she has a boyfriend but not a boyfriend wrapped in a bow of emotional support? Do I draw a hard line and say, it's him or me? Risk being labelled controlling, or worse, traditional? Or do I accept this strange triangle, forever sharing my ramen dates with a man whose job description sounds like it came out of a therapy brochure? Because here's the kicker. Evan's nice. Too nice. He likes board games. He asks about my day. He gave me a ride home once when Julia was too tired. I want to hate him. But the only person I'm mad at is Julia. This story is wild, but it says a lot about how relationships evolve in the age of endless labels. Sometimes people use words to soften the impact of their choices. Emotional support partner sounds gentler than other boyfriend. But language can't erase reality. If someone is filling boyfriend duties, they're a boyfriend, no matter what acronym you slap on it. The real scandal here isn't Evan. It's the lack of honesty. Julia tried to rebrand a second relationship as something less threatening instead of admitting she wanted both. That's not openness. That's spin. And the boyfriend here? He has a choice. He can accept this unconventional setup, knowing the boundaries are blurry. Or he can decide he deserves to be someone's main quest and side quest rolled into one. Not split into DLCS for different partners. Sometimes the label doesn't matter. The feeling does. And if the feeling is that you've been sidelined, it's time for an honest talk, no matter what acronym is on the table. And that's where we'll end tonight's dive into R/relationships. We've heard about the girlfriend who thought her boyfriend was a spy, the family who mistook a partner for a life coach, the fiancé who couldn't resist flirting with her future brother-in-law, the secret relationship steering committee running behind the scenes, and the girlfriend who tried to rebrand her second boyfriend as an emotional support partner. Some of these stories made us laugh, some made us cringe, and some left us wondering how people manage to get themselves into situations this messy. But that's what makes them so fascinating. Relationships are complicated, human, and sometimes hilariously scandalous. Whether you're listening while you play Minecraft, winding down before bed, or just enjoying a calm voice in the background, I'm glad you were here to share these stories with me. If you liked tonight's video, don't forget to like, leave a comment with your favorite story, and subscribe for more long-form storytelling every week. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of the people you love, and remember, even in the most chaotic relationships, there's always something to learn, and maybe even something to laugh about. Good night, everyone.